Hey, what's up, Gorehounds? So tonight I'm going to be reviewing John Carpenter's The Fog, this film right here. So, as the title alludes to, it was made by John Carpenter in 1980, and it was the film he made directly or immediately following Halloween in 1978. And Halloween, as every horror fan knows, was his breakthrough film. And as a result of Halloween being so popular, I feel that The Fog often doesn't get quite enough attention or quite the same amount of attention, which really isn't fair because it has just the same amount of atmosphere and just the perfect sort of dark, sinister vibe that a lot of his other more famous films do, like Halloween. So I've been on a bit of a John Carpenter binge lately. He's one of my favorite directors, so I've been watching a lot of his films. So as far as The Fog goes, it just works really well as an atmospheric piece, an atmospheric movie. The combination of demons rolling in with the fog and just staying with the fog, going, wherever the fog goes, the demons show up, is a really interesting idea. The very well-placed lighting that it's usually very dim lighting, and it just offers this very creepy and sinister sort of vibe. Every time you see the fog, it's just very creepy. And also the makeup on the demons themselves. I only refer to them as demons because it's never really clear whether they're these creatures in the fog are zombies or mutants or ghosts or monsters or whatever. And that only serves to make it that much more creepy when you're watching it. So just the lack of knowing backstory behind the creatures actually helps to make it that much more terrifying because you're terrified of the unknown. That's also, as an aside, a reason why I didn't like the new Halloween by Rob Zombie as much, because he delved too deeply into the backstory of why Michael Myers was the way he was and how he was treated in the mental hospital. This film doesn't really concern itself too much with the backstory of why. It just hints at it subtly, and that is how, in my opinion, the best horror films are done. So anyway, following Halloween, John had a lot more credibility because Halloween went huge. He made about $50 million with it. And his style was starting to be copied by other filmmakers at the time, especially when The Fog came out in 1980. There were other filmmakers like Sean S. Cunningham with Friday the 13th and other films such as Prom Night and Terror Train that were slasher films that were copying the slasher formula set up by Halloween, where you have a bunch of kids who go off into a desolate location and get offed, sliced apart, killed by some boogeyman, either because they're not following social norms or accepted social norms, and because they're just drinking, partying, having sex, doing drugs, so forth. So that whole formula was starting to be used and was becoming very prevalent in the 80s, and John Carpenter kind of pioneered it with Halloween. But anyway, enough about Halloween. Moving on with The Fog in 1980, as I said, the creatures, they come out from the fog, but you're never really certain if they're monsters or ghosts or what they are. And although they appear in the fog and they sort of apparate like these sort of ethereal demons, they attack physically. So it's sort of like a potent combination between a generic slasher wearing a mask and a ghost. And for that reason, I feel this film in particular is all the more terrifying. And another thing that I really like the film does is its use of the disorienting effect of the fog to create a feeling of being lost and that you're no longer in the natural world. So when the victims are being stalked by the killer, it's not just the killer, like Michael Myers in Halloween, walking after his victims. The fog follows the victims, and then the creatures appear out of the fog. And to me, again, that's a lot more terrifying because they can come from anywhere and you can't really see. So it's a very good formula and setup for a horror movie, very creepy. That being said, I'm going to show you a clip now of two deaths. I believe the first two deaths, or three deaths in the movie. All right, so here's that.
Ahoy, mateys. This is KAB Antonio Bay. Stevie Wayne here, beaming a signal across the sea. For the men of the seagrass, 15 miles out tonight, a warm hello and keep a watch out for that fog bank heading in from the east. Now, in the meantime, relax with me while I play this song from the Coupe de Villes, dedicated just to you.
Boy, would I like to meet her.
I saw her at a grocery store one day.
And?
You would like to meet her.
She's crazy. There's no fog bank out there.
What you know about her?
She owns that lighthouse.
I know that.
Her son plays Little League with my kid brother.
She's a mother?
I thought you were happily married.
Not that happy.
Fog bank out there. Hey, there's a fog bank out there.
All right. I'm drunk enough. Let's go back. All right.
Al, come here.
Just give him a hand.
Come here. What was it?
It's a generator.
What?
Al.
Let's go. Hey, there was just a ship out there.
Al, listen.
Nothing.
Listen.
Who's there?
Who is that?
Hell, it's right beside us. It's big, Al. It's a ship. It's a big ship. Yeah, you get wet?
All right. Also, I wanted to make a comment, since this is a Carpenter film, about the score. It's excellent, and as with virtually all of Carpenter's films, he wrote the score himself. And although I love the score to Halloween, this one, in my opinion, is just as creepy as the score to Halloween, but it serves as more of a subtle backdrop to the movie as opposed to being played over the movie. Like at Halloween, when they had the score running, it would usually run over top of the sound, and you would hear the sound of Michael Myers breathing into his mask, sort of this heavy breathing sound underneath the sound of the main theme. In this case, it's kind of the opposite. The score in The Fog is like a subtle backdrop to the sounds of people screaming, running away, swords being pulled out by the demons, and so forth. And for that reason, it's more subtle, but it's also more creepy for that reason, in my opinion. Anyway, here's a clip from The Fog. It's the opening scene from The Fog, where they have the music running through the background. It's a very effective scene. Here it is.
11:55. Almost midnight. Enough time for one more story. One more story before 12. Just to keep us warm. In 5 minutes, it'll be the 21st of April. 100 years ago, on the 21st of April, out in the waters around Spivey Point, a small clipper ship drew toward land. Suddenly, out of the night, the fog rolled in. For a moment, they could see nothing, not a foot ahead of them. And then they saw a light. My God, it was a fire burning on the shore, strong enough to penetrate the swirling mist. They steered a course toward the light, but it was a campfire like this one. The ship crashed against the rocks. The hull sheared in two, the mast snapped like a twig, and the wreckage sank with all the men aboard. At the bottom of the sea lay the Elizabeth Dane with her crew, their lungs filled with salt water, their eyes open and staring into the darkness. And above, as suddenly as it had come, the fog lifted, receded back across the ocean, and never came again. But it is told by the fishermen and their fathers and grandfathers that when the fog returns to Antonio Bay, the men at the bottom of the sea, out in the water by Spivey Point, will rise up and search for the campfire that led them to their dark and icy death. 12 o'clock, the 21st of April.
So to wrap up this review, I'll just say that Fog is a very dark and atmospheric movie, but it's one that is very simplistic in terms of its storyline. I won't go too deeply into how the story goes in the end, but essentially, as I said before, it has a very minimal backstory, and it doesn't do too much to explain why these fog demons are appearing. But the subtle hints at the backstory, and then the sort of twist at the end when it becomes a revenge story, help to flesh out the story without delving too deeply into what's happening. Because I find with horror, if you give too much of an explanation as to what's happening, you lose some of the fear, because a lot of the fear of the unknown and the intrigue is gone. This film very effectively, like Halloween, Carpenter's last film, this film very effectively preserves the intrigue and preserves the fear in that way. So yeah, in closing, it was an excellent film, and it's just unfortunate that it's not quite as appreciated as the film that came before it by Carpenter, Halloween. So if you haven't checked out The Fog, I highly recommend you do so. Anyway, thanks for watching, Gorehounds, and I'll catch you later.